Thursday, almost there. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin at the White House, where President Trump highlighted hundreds of millions of dollars that the administration is now spending to revitalize coal.
As a result of the $700 million investment that I'm announcing today, we will protect 14 coal plants and 42 coal mines.
Got to get your power somewhere. The president saying 14,000 jobs will be supported. Also, former National Security Advisor John Bolton has reportedly reached a plea deal to guilty for his mishandling of classified documents, agreeing to pay a fine of more than $2 million and could avoid prison time. Bolton has a hearing scheduled for June 22nd or 26th. And the golden standard of liberal journalism, the New York Times, dropping a complete bombshell like not that long, a few minutes ago, on Graham Platner, in which a former girlfriend debunked his ignorance that he had some sort of Nazi tattoo, saying it referred to it as my Totenkampf, acknowledging the intent of the symbol. Sorry, Graham, you lose again. We're going to have much more on this in just a minute. But first, Klan hoods and burning crosses. That's apparently how the left's most prominent anti-hate group fights racism. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Let's do this. You just can't make this up. The people who call us Trump supporters Nazis were apparently paying other people to burn crosses and even bought their Klan hoods for them. What nice guys, right? Remember when the DOJ indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center, the SPLC? Then remember when the left said, oh, no, this is all a hoax. Those are our guys. Yeah, well, there was just a superseding indictment that just dropped, meaning that more stuff came to light about them, and now they've refiled for more charges against them. Now, it just came out that the SPLC literally paid for the hoods for Klan members. But while all this was going on, basically every liberal media network parroted their data to push a narrative.
We have to stop demonizing people and realize the biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
Not a coincidence that neither of those guys have a show on that network anymore. But leading to the president of the United States, which was Joe Biden, if you could call him that. He didn't act like it, but watch.
We won't ignore what our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism.
Turns out that's not true. Even before we found out about the SPLC and they were cooking the books, we knew it wasn't true. But now it's even more double secret probation not true. What's their mission statement at the SPLC? They like dismantle white supremacy. Here it is right here. The SPLC is a catalyst for racial justice in the South and beyond, working in partnership with communities to dismantle white supremacy, strengthen intersectional movements, whatever the hell that means, and advance the human rights of all people. Oh, yeah? I guess I gotta ask, then why did you guys buy hoods and burning crosses? Tyler O'Neill on X. If you don't follow this guy, go do it now. Great thread with the receipts on this. The people they were paying as informants were actually being paid to go out and conduct racism stuff, not report it, which totally tracks with everything on the left, that our country is such a great place that they literally have to create grievances to raise money on, just like they created Russia collusion, just like they created the January 6th hoax with their 270-something undercover agents' assets, or whatever they want to label them, to lie to Congress about. Basically, the SPLC, with their $750 million endowment, if you said anything that they don't like, they put you on a hate list, and then they called you an extremist and blasted it on every liberal network. You oppose illegal immigration? Extremist. Moms for Liberty? You insurrectionist danger to America. Can't have those moms having an opinion now, can we? Classic Democrat pro-women power movement, right? Even me, Carl Higbie. Horrible. I'm the worst, apparently. By the way, wasn't horrible 15 years ago. Only when I went to work for the Trump administration did they publish that stuff. Wonder why they haven't weighed in on Graham Platner yet. But we will in just a second. The actual SS tattooed wannabe guy, with all that money raised on being the tip of the spear in fighting hate and racism, their words, not mine. According to this new indictment, the SPLC paid people to attend extremist rallies. They even paid them to host the rallies, growing existing chapters for racism. And when there weren't enough chapters in the area in their hate maps, they paid people to create new chapters. They recruited individuals. They even donated to extremist leaders. Can you imagine sitting there right now being an SPLC donor and being like, hey, you know what? I went to this fundraiser and I'm going to help fight racism, or whatever they made you believe at that fundraiser. And now this new indictment pops up and pow! Turns out they gave like 10 times your entire donation to a Klansman to act more Klanny. A leftist group that proclaimed itself the sole judge and jury of who and what was a hate group was literally paying the Klan to burn crosses. I mean, bravo. Making America less racist, one cross and hood at a time. What'd you like? How did you guys get caught? What did you go to Ace Hardware and like buy some 2x4s and then like log it in your QuickBooks as like cross for burning, hoods for wearing? They were paying to create racist paraphernalia. Could they have purchased the tiki torches that made headline news like the worst thing since the Japanese internment camps? I mean, maybe at this point. They paid living expenses for their instigators to travel all over the country and establish themselves in these communities. They paid $1.2 million. All these people in this indictment are all labeled like, code names. This is F9. $1 million to a guy, F9, who was in a romantic relationship with an SPLC employee. It gets even worse. The KKK is bad, but it's, according to the SPLC, it's good to pay $70K to the Aryan Nations leader. Okay, $155K to the former chair of the Neo-Nazi National Alliance. I'm sure it was because he was so reformed, though, right? Here's the good stuff. Remember why Biden said he ran for president?
I ran for president in 2020 because of what I saw in Charlottesville in August of 2017.
Happened after 2 p.m., so he actually had a lid, so he got the reruns the next day. But turns out the SPLC paid someone $300,000 to gin that whole thing up. Who knew? I mean, we all called it at the time. We were called conspiracy theorists. $19K for someone who was a convicted felon to go burn another cross. $350K for the Aryan Nations Motorcycle Club. It's a ton of money. I mean, for the love of God, this is all insane. And while this is socially, morally, and politically unacceptable, it's not illegal. Where the DOJ actually got them was on 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of false statements to federally insured banks, and 1 count of conspiracy to conceal money laundering. They got caught by not only lying to us, their donors and everybody else. That was legal. They got nabbed on lying to the banks about how the money was being moved around and what it was for. The group that's sole existence is to label anyone and everything they don't like racist or extremist. This group was even listed as an official informant of the federal government at one point. They would literally find people who were a threat to the left's agenda, brand them racist. That was their entire existence. It was now reduced to this stuff that we're finding out now. Wild. Meanwhile, you got people like Mike Pence out there being like, oh, we got to bring back the old-style GOP and govern on principles.
I hope what they do, as I argue in my book, is return our party to the consistent advocacy of the conservative agenda that's defined the Republican movement for the last 50 years.
Hey, I had to go to CNN to say that because they're the only ones who will have them on. Dude, the left is paying for people to burn crosses to pin it on you, and you want to take the high road, the old GOP style. This is why you went approximately 0 places in your election career after VP. Because the rest of the GOP has moved on from the Mr. Rogers wannabe. We want to destroy these people because that's what they tried to do to us. You want to go play nice with libs, Mike? I guess fine, go ahead. Ask Liz Cheney how that worked out. Victor Davis Hanson, senior fellow at the Hoover Institute and host of Victor Davis Hanson in his own words. Sir, I'm almost at a loss of words for this.
Well, you can see it in the vocabulary, too, because if you don't have racism as we know racism, then you have all these prefixes. It's systemic. You can't see it because it's supposedly everywhere, and only a expert like them, the Southern Poverty Law Center, you have to hire to find out where insidious or systemic racism is. Same thing with aggression. There is no aggression, but now they say, well, yeah, there's no racial aggression, but there's microaggressions, the way a person looks or a gesture. So the language has already facilitated the fact that when they made this binary under Obama, that 30% were victims and oppressors, and 70% were victims and the oppressed, and 70% were oppressors and victimizers. It didn't really work because there were more. There wasn't 30% just because you were not white. It was 30% supposedly because you were actually being oppressed, but you weren't. What I'm getting at, Carl, is that we didn't have enough oppressors or victimizers.
Right.
For the demand was bigger than the supply.
Right, but but the other thing too is there was so little supply of actual racism that at one point,
yes,
when people like us were like, hey, this seems a little fishy and looks like it might be staged, they were like, denying white supremacy is white supremacy, and so is milk.
Yes, I know it. And that, again, all of these crazy words they created, safe spaces, theme houses for racially, it all got back to the idea that now there's civil rights, there's de facto equality, and yet we want special privileges for the elite of these different groups, the LGBTQ, blacks, Latinos, but we can't certify there's racism. So we've got to either hire people to be racist or change the vocabulary and say it's a teeny little bit, but it still hurts us. It's called micro, or there's no racist book, but there's a little bit of a trigger warning.
Right.
And they came up with a whole lexicon, and I think everybody's sick of it. I think I think the DI is dying. Yeah, well, I hope so. And when it's dead, I want to kick it again. New York Times, though, this dropped right before this show. A new report saying that one of Platner's exes saying that he told her that rape was about power, and then if anybody ever broke in, he would rape them. These are his quotes, adding that, or these are her alleged quotes of him, adding that it would not be in a sexual way, not in a gay way. He was like, I would rape them to show them that I am dominant. Well, that's super weird. I saw that article, I just read it, and it violated 3 of his promises to his Democratic colleagues who were, should we get rid of him? And he said no. And they asked him specifically, is there going to be another revelation? He said no, and there is now. And then he said, well, he's uncouth and he's rude, but he's not abusive to women. Well, he is abusive to women. They feel threatened by him. Yeah. And
he said that one was not in a gay way. So during Pride Month, he said it was. But he also,
I think one of the girlfriends felt that she felt threatened by him and the way he talked about women. So that was the second promise he violated. Then, of course, the Toten cop, he'd always said he was either drunk or he didn't know what it was, or it was the military's fault. But now we know that he was bragging about it. So he knew what it was. So those were the conditions under which the Democratic people had, they saved face by saying, well, he wasn't abusive. There's nothing more coming out. But Totenkopf, he didn't really know what he was. And that's all been confounded.
What's great.
I think they're going to I think the New York Times basically said we could lose this main seat. So we better go after him like we did Swalwell. And get rid of him while we still have time.
Yeah, but what the best is watching all the senators right now, the Democrat senators, they're trying to dance around. Play this real quick.
I'm just going to answer the same way I just answered you. Anything I say is going to be played somewhere in Maine. Maine voters need to make this call. Once they do make the call, I'm sure I'm going to have some things to say. But as far as next Tuesday goes, that's the primary day. There's 3 names on the ballot. Maine Democrats will decide.
They don't even want to answer it, sir.
No, they don't. They're very vocal about anybody but themselves. And according to their own standards of behavior, this guy should be rejected. But they're embarrassed. Bernie Sanders has made a fool of himself. He's been the most prominent in saying that, he fought for his country. And then you start to think about it, you think, well, yeah, so you're saying that anybody who fought for his country abuses women or wears death, and that's when 99.9% of our veterans didn't get tattooed with a Nazi head.
I sure didn't.
Yeah, you didn't. But they're acting like it was normative behavior for everybody.
No, it's crazy. Victor Davis Hanson, pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, what the heck is going on in California with their elections. President Trump calling out the voting, quote, delay for Tuesday's election. How long is it going to take? Oh, they got to figure out how many Republican votes were in first. But first, one senator calling for a federal investigation from an HHS after a whistleblower claimed a researcher at Rocky Mountain Laboratories was bit by a test monkey carrying a lethal disease. This is insane. That senator is going to join me next.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
The road to greatness is long, but greatness isn't just forged from within. It has to be proven on the greatest stage of all.
The hype is real! This is the moment we have all been waiting for.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease symptoms can keep coming back. Break away to what's possible with Tremfya. Tremfya can help with remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years. Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Hey, you remember a few weeks ago when the media tried to push this hantavirus fear-mongering on us and everybody was like, no thanks, and poof, it went just out of the news. Well, we might have a real story here that backs up why we don't trust anyone anymore. Montana Senator Tim Sheehy is sounding the alarm on the alleged misconduct brought to light by a whistleblower complaint at Rocky Mountain Laboratories, asking HHS to conduct an investigation because a researcher was bitten by a test monkey and no one is doing anything about it. Sheehy tweeting out, "We don't want Montana to be the next Wuhan. Montanans and Americans deserve answers over concerning reports about Rocky Mountain Laboratories." Now, Senator Sheehy wrote a letter to HHS Inspector General saying in part, quote, "In November 2025, an RML employee personnel protective equipment was breached by a bite and the employee was exposed to Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, which is a severe tick-borne viral disease that can lead to life-threatening hemorrhages and carries a fatality rate of about 40%. Went on. Even more concerning are recent reports regarding Dr. Vincent Munster, a foreign-educated virologist who is a senior scientist at RML and has a history of studying and experimenting with coronavirus, monkeypox, Ebola, and other potentially dangerous pathogens. And then, boom, Tuesday night, 2 scientists from this lab, Vincent Munster and Claude Quay, I don't know what his name is, were charged with smuggling vials of deactivated monkeypox virus into the country from Africa and then lying about it during interviews with investigators at a Michigan airport. These people ain't happy unless they're causing some sort of major crisis, problem, or pandemic, because obviously crisis means money for them. The man who made these charges possible, Montana Senator, fellow team guy, Tim Sheehy. Senator, tell me more about this craziness.
Well, Carl, thanks for covering it, because as you saw, when we started to reach out about this, it wasn't even news. No one was talking about it. And we had potentially Ebola, extremely infectious diseases. I mean, COVID was a sniffle. Ebola's got a 90+% fatality rate. So having this right in the heart of our state of Montana is very concerning. Now, listen, the work the lab does is important. We want to make sure the American people are protected from viruses. But when we have foreign nationals smuggling viruses into our country illegally, well, what's the whole point of it in the first place? So it was unacceptable. We were getting whistleblower reports about this situation. We called for an investigation, and thank God we did, because as you see already, indictments are happening. We're finding out there's a lot more here we got to learn.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I'm just curious though. Why are they having like biting monkeys around? And was this monkey put down? Do you know anything about this? Like, if a dog bites you, they put it down.
Exactly, and that's why we're asking for an investigation, because clearly there's a lot more happening either at this lab, around this lab, or the people affiliated with it that our Montanans are going to want to know. I mean, this lab's in a small town in western Montana. This isn't in some big city. This is a small town, and it's an important part of the town. So we got to figure out what's going on there. Hopefully, this is an aberration and not normal activity for what's going on in this lab and the people that work there. But man, we got foreign nationals smuggling deadly viruses into the country, lying to our CBP officers about it. We got to get to the bottom of it. And that's what we're doing.
Treason stuff. All right, I want to get to one of your bills that you've introduced also, the Jail Act, Judicial Accountability for Irresponsible Leniency. This is to hold soft-on-crime judges accountable. Like, if they let a murderer out who's been, arrested 48,000 times, and then they go and kill another person, they could actually go to jail here.
You mentioned in the opening, why Americans aren't trusting anybody anymore. Well, how can Americans have trust in our justice system when we have judges releasing violent criminal offenders again and again and again and again and again? I could keep going 45 times sometimes. You see these crimes of these savage criminals who've conducted real violent crimes. We're not talking about the occasional parking ticket. We're talking guys who are murdering people, who are assaulting people, raping people, and they get arrested and they're out in the street same day. And then somehow color me shocked when they go do the exact same thing again for the 47th time. Yeah. And all of a sudden there's outrage. And it's unacceptable that the American people have had to live with this. And it's getting worse and worse as George Soros and all these lefties are funding soft on crime DAs and lunatic judges. And we have a whole nonprofit legal industrial complex, as we've learned with SPLC, who judge shop to make sure the soft on crime judges pair up with the soft on crime prosecutors, and they put criminals back on the street again and again. We got to put a stop to it. This act will do that. It will end the immunity that judges have on the bench. If they intentionally and knowingly are letting violent criminals out who then reoffend, guess what? They could be put in jail too.
Well, thank God for pattern recognition specialists like yourself, Senator. We'll call it that. All right, yes. Real quick, I got about 30 seconds left. New York City, everybody's leaving because they want to tax billionaires and stuff like that. But a lot of them are coming to Montana, okay? They're saying, hey, like Samsung is leaving New Jersey because they, tax too much. And now they're coming to places like your state because it's more friendly for business. I mean, I don't know how much simpler it could be.
Well, incentives matter. And guess what? Behavior will follow incentives. And I built my companies in Montana. Montana's a great state to do business. We got some of the most talented, hardworking people around. And our state government actually wants you to create jobs and wealth in our state. So we welcome G&T Industries to Montana. Our governor, state government, the red carpet is rolled out for businesses who want to come here, create wealth, and make our economy stronger. We're proud to have them.
Government that governs best, governs least. Senator, Team Sheehy, we appreciate it, sir.
All right, see you, Carl.
All right, coming up, just when I started to give CNN an ounce of credit for one person stance on the Platner stuff, Abby Phillips comes out and warns viewers that Trump is preparing to cancel the midterm election. This is so dumb. Next.
He could tell me everything about my life, so he was looking for me for a long time.
Children are being manipulated and blackmailed online. The results can be deadly. Human trafficking is happening right here in America. Watch Stolen Lives, America's human trafficking crisis.
An official message from Medicare.
I turned 65 in a few months. I knew it was time to figure out Medicare, so I went to the official source, Medicare.gov. I got the facts, and you can too.
An official message from Medicare. You have a lot going on. If you're ready to sign up for Medicare, find the most up-to-date information at Medicare.gov, the official source for all things Medicare. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Use daily dermatologist-recommended Dermend and reduce the appearance of bruises. Get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle.
This is the story of the one who knows that being ready for the unexpected comes from having a partner like Grainger, whose professional-grade products and next-day delivery help ensure that he and his team are prepared to rise to every challenge, so he can be confident that he has what he needs when he needs it to help keep patients safe and happy. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
To dream the impossible dream. To reach
United States World Cup champions.
What? You think the U.S. is going to win the World Cup?
Hey, you don't believe in miracles?
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
You can join the Tunnel to Towers mission to do good by donating your car to today's veterans. Your car donation will help Gold Star families, as well as injured veterans, our first responders, and our homeless veterans. Donating your car is quick and simple. Any car is accepted, and we will pick up the car for free. Simply call 844-BRAVES.
By donating your car, you can make a real difference. You can do good.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in: family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all three main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
Relay gives us visibility into not just the amount of money we have, but the work that it's doing, and it gives us something to build toward.
It's a game changer for me. Over time with Relay, it made everything much easier.
Wouldn't be CNN without some election fear-mongering. Abby Phillips warning her panel about Trump's plans to cancel the midterm elections. Watch.
Trump raised the issue of canceling the election. Don't put that on Democrats.
Said he wasn't
hold
going
on,
to allow
hold on,
elections
Jason.
to even occur.
Hold on, Jason.
They said that from the beginning.
Just to be clear, the only person who has talked about canceling elections is Donald Trump. Trump has repeatedly already, before this moment, cast doubt on the upcoming election. So it's not just the past, it's also the present, it's the future.
Okay. Well, Bob Brooks, co-host of American Agenda, and Ike Wingate, host of Ike Wingate America, the best named show on TV. Look.
Good name.
Thank you. Yeah. I get Frontline, you get American Agenda.
Yeah.
He gets America. Whatever. Can't win them all. Anyway, so Abby Phillips wins none. Look, Trump just trolls people sometimes, and they take the bait every time.
Yeah, every single time. That was a joke. That was nothing more than a joke. TDS. I don't know what else I'm supposed to say to this one. We're going to have midterm elections. That's it.
Yeah, it's a joke that they continue to latch on to. Anything that Trump says, these people have no sense of humor. That really is, I think, one of the most, the largest problems in our country right now is that Democrats have zero sense of comedy. They have no sense of humor. They can't ever laugh at anything, and so they latch onto this thing. And that's a complete lie. Abby Phillips is literally lying on TV, and it's like it's no big deal.
What are you talking about? Graham Platner said that his tattoo was a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
For 20 years,
Yeah.
Nazi tattoo. Yeah, real joke here. How about Save America Act? Have American citizens vote only.
That would be a solution. That would be a solution.
Can't do that.
Can't do that.
Okay, yeah.
That's racist.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
All right, speaking of post-election chaos, former New York Times opinion columnist Paul Krugman says that we need to demagify the country when it comes to Trump. Roll this.
We need to defang Trump as much as possible and make sure that neither he nor anybody who follows in his footsteps has power after the next two elections. We really need to do a thorough purging of the United States. We need a demagification, using a word that's very similar to the denazification that we pursued successfully after World War II in Germany.
I'm sorry. So this Crypt Keeper's talking about genocide and re-education camps for anybody who supported the guy saying "Make America Great Again"?
They're the party running a guy that had a Nazi tattoo on his chest for 20 years almost. Okay. I think we need to de-democratify the country. Don't indoctrinate your children. Make sure only Americans can live in America. Deport those who aren't. Stop fraud. Like crazy. Their party has absolutely no platform. I think we got to get rid of their stuff.
I'm going to throw this out there. The Democrat Party would be wiped out of politics if there was a single test. Can you back up a trailer?
Can you back up a trailer? Yeah. That is something that I learned at a young age, and that is something, I mean, you know, that's bigger than hair on the chest, I mean, when you know how to back up a trailer. But this guy looks like he is in a deranged episode of NPR or something like that, where he's talking about de-magify. Well, if we were liberals right now, we would have to go to our safe space because this is such insightful language. This is the side that loves violence.
And all the woke stuff, you know, before I made the choice to come to Newsmax at my last company, which it's easy to look up online where I used to work, the icing on the cake was during Pride Month, they had a drag queen, a man dressed as a woman, a big fat guy dressed as a woman, giving a performance in the lobby when I came into work. I was working the night shift, so I came in at 3. There's a big party going on, and there's a freak in there, and everyone's staring and dancing around. I was like, whoa.
Get me out of here.
Whoa, that's it. I was done. We got to get rid of that stuff. That's what we got to get rid of.
That's the mainstream Democrats now. But Mike Pence, though, okay, Mike Pence is saying that, you know, Trump is the one who's departed from the conservative. Just watch this real quick, if you can bear it.
But I think what's lesser known right now is the way this second Trump administration has departed from the conservative agenda that we governed on. But when you see an administration with broad-based tariffs, nationalizing American businesses, questioning and pulling back from our allies, I think Republicans would do well to take some time to reflect on what we believe again and take that message to the American people.
Mike Pence he didn't get elected because nobody cares.
Yeah, didn't go so well for him.
No, I just woke up from a nap watching that because it was so boring. He has some sort of idea that he has the claim on conservatism, acting like President Trump is not governing conservatively. I'm sorry, dude, but you weren't willing to even stand in the gap for the president. Conservative values, that's bravery and standing up for your country. Who's the one that's forgotten?
How about America First values? I think we're all down for that. And calling out our allies, making them pay their fair share of money.
Yeah, by the way, they're not our allies if they don't want to do that for us.
They're censoring free. They're arresting people for posts online over there. Their immigration's completely out of control. They got to have somebody come in and try and correct some of that stuff going on. They're not going to be our allies in the future.
Also,
they keep going down the route they're going.
Yeah, ally is a give and take. We keep giving and they keep taking, and we never get anything back from most of those people.
No, we don't.
Anyway, Bob Brooks, Ike Wingate, America. Always a pleasure.
Great name.
Yeah, keep it here, folks. We got Culture Clash coming up next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
We've been building chainsaws for over 100 years. Now, that century of cutting comes in a mower. New blade, same bloodline. Right now, save $50 on select mowers. Steel.
Ever wished you could brew your own beer, but figured it was too complicated, too messy, too much effort? Well, now you can. Meet Pinter, the home beer system everyone's talking about. Fresh beer, brewed and tapped by you. No fuss, no guesswork. Just brew, chill, tap, done. You can craft 12 pints with every brew. Crisp lager, juicy and hoppy IPAs, smooth stouts. Plus, brew beers from top craft breweries you know and love. From the first tap to the last toast, hosting just got an upgrade. Nothing beats sharing your own fresh beer with friends. You don't need a garage brewery. You don't need a chemistry set. You just need a pinter. Right now, get your pinter free when you join our flexible beer plan. Choose your beers, brew fresh at home, and tap into the world's best beer experience. Free pinter. Freshly brewed beer. Zero fuss. Go to pinter.com/spring to claim your offer today.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drew Pinsky. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
The Dutton Ranch. We're back in business.
You heard right. Let's go to work. I'm glad you're making friends, honey.
You're every bit as advertised.
You're damn right he is.
Fighting a good fight, buddy.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Left-wing media warned us this was coming. The late mail-in ballot drop just came in, and the total votes remaining to count went up. Trump even chiming in, calling out the delayed counting, writing, quote, "There's big cheating by Democrats in California. Votes are all tied up. May not be in for weeks, under investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. Why the vote counting delay? Well, they have to wait for all the Republican ones to come in so they know how many Democrat ones they need." California is insane. And it, I don't know, 2 weeks to count these things. Now the betting site Kalishi has, or Wakilshi or whatever it is, has this ramen lady, 67% chance of actually advancing to the primary against Karen Bass now over Spencer Pratt. And he's up by like a ton of points in the votes currently. So they're going to need a ton, like dump trucks full of ballots. Like the Democrats really they're doing it right in front of our face. Newsmax contributor Kay Smythe and comedian and host of Ungoverned on LFA TV. Shawn, they're literally like, okay, now we know Republicans have this. Bring in the truck.
Yeah, and this is what happens when you get, like, I don't know, a month to let votes come in. But it was postmarked by Election Day, so that's fine. You know, if I was Spencer Pratt, I'd be making a mockery of this whole thing right now. I would literally be out personally door knocking and postmarking ballots for June 2nd. But he'd go to jail for that, right, for committing election fraud. They'd
He's
be
a
like,
Republican.
look, election fraud, it's real. Right, you know, but when Ramen Noodles gets her, you know, her ballots coming in late, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's totally legit, right, despite the fact that a New York Times article in 2012 exposed how prone to fraud mail-in balloting is. Right in front of our face. It's very bold. Yeah. I'll give him that.
Kay, look, I know you're a UK native, all right? We've been all over this story for weeks, and you're not wasting your time here. After, like, silence from all the leaders in the UK about Henry Nowak, who was stabbed by a Sikh guy, and then he handcuffed and left to die because the guy who stabbed him said he was racist. Keir Starmer is now accusing Elon Musk of spreading the hate. Watch this.
We need to also assert who we are as a country, because Musk, again, has been interfering in our politics in the last few days, trying to whip up division. That is not who we are in Britain. In Britain, we are reasonable, tolerant people. When we have a terrible case like Henry's case, Henry Nowak, we react calmly, as his family have done.
Kay, I don't speak weak British man. Can you translate?
Yeah, he's basically going blah, 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 blah. Let's cancel all types of free speech. Let's blame Elon Musk for all of the problems that we have. It has nothing to do with the fact that you've imported a majority of the third world military-aged males. It has nothing to do with the fact that most of the people in the country think you're a clown show. Yeah, this is just another classic example of having, it's that British, like, spinelessness.
Yeah.
It's pathetic, it's weak, and we got to get rid of Starmer. And if I could, I would totally vote for Elon Musk to be the Prime Minister of the UK, quite
That
frankly,
would be
because
something.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Sean, okay, 21 years ago today, Killdozer, a guy in Colorado, basically is like, had to get all these, Kay's laughing. You know what I'm talking about. They were like, you got to get all these building permits. We're going to give land to a concrete plant in front of you. And you, by the way, your septic system, we don't like the way you built it. And this drain pipe. And he's like, you know what? Screw it. Locks himself in a closet or in a garage, puts armor-piercing steel all over a Komatsu bulldozer and drives through the concrete plant next door, the police station, the mayor's house, and a bunch of stores. They couldn't stop him.
Now, I am not endorsing domestic terrorism.
No.
I've done some crazy things in this segment. I will not endorse domestic terrorism. However, I have an idea if the Jets go 6-11 next season. I'm just saying.
Whoa.
Okay, I'm just, just
Whoa.
have an idea.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's a crazy story. What a crazy story. Hey, don't do that. Don't try this at home. But it's one of those stories that's going to live in American folklore forever. It's a wild story, and when you see pictures of this bulldozer, it's just crazy. The fact that he built all that himself. So good on him, I guess.
Okay, honor of Pride Month. I had to bring this headline back from 2019. A trans parent, 29, dies of cancer, and it's very sad. Becoming a woman. Becoming a woman she was meant to be. And then you read down in the article, it turns out that this they proclaimed woman died of a battle with testicular cancer.
So I actually found out yesterday because of Newsmax.
Sean.
This is how I found this out. I found out that this month is actually Cancer Survivors Month, but it gets completely overblown and completely overtaken by all of the rainbow clowns who, want to go out and have their parades and their safe houses during the World Cup and all of this other garbage that comes hand in hand with Pride Month every single year. Whole month dedicated to people who just have to let us know about their private lives behind closed doors. You know, it's just really sad. So, yeah, we have a 2-for-1. It is very, very sad. I'm sad when anyone dies of cancer. But
it is sad.
It just doesn't make sense.
No.
Like, there are senses
Sean,
in
in
it.
interest
You
of
can't
my
talk about
job,
this on television, Carl.
I'm interested in 10 seconds of your opinion, and that's all. I got to cut you off after 10 seconds.
Okay, well, sad story. Obviously, nobody wants to die of cancer. And by the way, the bulldozer, despite being armored, was still not bigger than Chris Christie. Had to do it. Love you.
You are so bad. Sean Kay, thank you very much. Coming up, the Supreme Court decision that broke the system, making politicians choose cash over principle. Citizens United, breaking that down next.
My mom had her identity stolen, and seeing just how stressful that was changed everything for me. Now, I use the Experian app to check my FICO score and even get real-time alerts. It helps me feel in control. Get started with the Experian app.
Sir, he's here to see you.
So, are you ready to join forces? PCMag provides complete protection for your computer and smartphone against malware and ransomware, and it's 100% American-made and supported security.
Today, Cyberman and his unknown partner delivered a massive victory, protecting homes, businesses, and federal devices from ransomware.
Get protected now at PCmatic.com.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms can keep coming back.
Break away to what's possible with Tremfya.
The only IL-23 blocker for Crohn's and UC to offer self-administration from the start.
Tremfya can help with symptom relief as early as 4 weeks, remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years.
Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya.
Backed by over 15 years of clinical research. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
Healthy aging support starts here with the innovative nitric oxide science pioneered by Human, supporting your body from the heart out through circulation, blood flow, blood pressure, and energy. Results you can feel, science you can trust. Get started today at human.com.
It's time to bring your vision to life at Cabinets to Go, where you'll find our best-selling collections at 45% off. From Harbor Town White and Nantucket Fluff to Spring Hill Hickory, Montpelier Sage, Annapolis Blue, and Chalet White. In-demand collections up to 45% off now through June 9th. Shop and save on our most popular styles in showrooms nationwide or online. Only at Cabinets to Go, designed to wow.
We can all agree, steak is for dads. Grill dads, charcoal dads, tongue-snapping dads, united by their love of steak. His perfect gift is waiting, plus 8 free burgers at omahasteaks.com.
Kibble. It's been the standard for decades, and it's failing our dogs. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It's gently air-dried, locking in the nutrients and the flavor dogs go wild for. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
So let's talk about why politicians do some of the very bizarre things they sometimes do. Very few of them govern solely based on principle. We have some that have principles, but most put that second to the one thing that keeps them in office, which is money. And you ain't going to fix politics until you fix the way money influences it. Look, I have worked with hundreds of campaigns, and the first thing I tell everyone, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell, and no one will take you seriously until you've raised a minimum of $100,000. Now, you're a candidate. People who can't raise any money always say the same thing. Oh, we're going to run a grassroots campaign. Yes, and then you lose. You won't win because you can have the best message in the world, but if you don't have any money, you can't distribute it and have people work for you for it. And the vast majority of people have to raise it. They don't have massive personal wealth like some, so they have to go beg people for that money in the form of donations. This is what made Donald Trump so effective and so attractive right out the gate. Billionaire who didn't listen to the consultants because he didn't have to and wasn't controlled by anyone's money. But for nearly everyone else, they got to ask for that money. I ran for Congress. I know how this game goes. It was disgusting. It's best, though, in big chunks. And in the 2024 election, the federal donations cap were $3,300 per person per election. So with a primary and then a general, I don't because I'm not shelling out this kind of dough, but I could have donated $6,600 to a single candidate. And for that price, the donor would generally get their personal cell phone number. And this is how it starts. Look, I go to these fundraisers sometimes, not because I'm a baller, but because I know some of these guys, because we have them on the show. I ran for Congress, too. This is the ugly way our political system works. Rich people really like having influence. I'm not that rich, but let's take this other, billionaire guy. Rich guy one tells a candidate who he thinks probably has a shot of winning whatever district. Hey, Mr. Congressional candidate, I'd like to throw you an event. Maybe have 20 to 30 of my very rich buddies over to get to know you. That ends up 30 rich people times 6,600. That equals $198,000 in one night. In some rural districts, that actually could be enough to win. And before you know it, that guy or gal becomes a congressman. Why do you think Greenwich, Connecticut has so many random congressmen? Oh, he's just popping by. Money. But why would somebody in Connecticut support someone from any state, Montana, Nebraska, whatever? Well, I'm glad you asked that. Look, maybe they just like having a congressman pick up the phone when they call, but sometimes it's a lot more sinister than that. Actually, most times, because maybe that rich person owns a company in Nebraska or Montana or nationally that needs something, slipped into a bill somewhere that makes their tax burden a little bit less. Look, everybody does this, both sides, Republican, Democrat, whatever. Mega Republican donors, the Koch brothers, for example, they gave millions to politicians and PACs supporting them. Result? In post-Dodd-Frank, the financial sector's version of the Obamacare-style overhaul, in many reform bills after that, they began getting carve-out exemptions that specifically benefited Koch's massive energy trading operations. Democrat-backed groups have blocked tort reform. Yeah, they put all kinds of provisions in congressional bills for this. Specifically, the American Association for Justice, which is a heavy Democrat donor group of trial lawyers, blocked malpractice caps on litigation in Obamacare, so they could continue to pursue massive litigation against medical providers and insurance groups. Psst, that's part of why our healthcare premiums are like 300% higher right now, by the way. That and untold numbers of administrators also to comply with Obamacare. But how many companies do this, though? A lot. Just take some defense contractors. You know how many congressmen and senators get like max out donations from them? Pretty much all of them. Yeah, I'm sure it's just a coincidence that Lockheed got a $2.1 trillion contract for the F-35. Here's their contributions to both sides, by the way. Look at those numbers on the side. As much as $7 million in a single year. For both parties. And that's not even including the $10 to $15 million a year they spend on lobbying. Lobbying is how they write the bill. That nearly $30 million that these defense contractors gave in donations over the last 10 years, that just buys them the direct phone number of the congressman that they can then tell them what to put in the bill, or they won't be contributing anymore. Big Pharma, again, their lobbying aside of $300 to $400 million per year, have given another $300 to $400 million in donations to candidates over the last 10 years. What did that get them? Oh, yeah, right. Complete legal immunity for an experimental vaccine. Meanwhile, they're doing all right. Check these guys out. This is the 40 new billionaires that were created just in COVID alone, probably the greatest wealth transfer ever. And you can't sue if your loved one dies from one of their products. Sweet. Not for nothing. This is, again, why Trump got elected, because he wasn't owned by these people. And to be honest, one of the issues that Bernie Sanders had been running on for years, but he also is simultaneously taking a ton of money from them. So, political donations give rich people the ear of and the control over elected officials. This is totally legal, by the way. That's the infuriating thing. Why? Well, because the parties most affected of any of these regulations are the ones writing the regulations. The uniparty's never going to represent the little guy until a vote is as important as the dollar. Because right now, money buys votes. The solution, I don't know, and we can just throw this out there, $100 caps on all political donations for any politician, per person, per election. And since the Citizens United decision, which I thought was terrible, you would need a constitutional amendment to stop super PACs from spending unlimited money. And what politician would vote against their own slush fund, right? Look, the swamp is deep, but keep paying your taxes. Lockheed and Pfizer need to lobby for it next year. All right, before we go, it's Thursday. Time for my favorite part of the week, Comments for Carl. Next.
Closed captioning by America Tax Group. Stop IRS and state collections. Free consultation. Call now.
America Tax Group is the nation's leading tax firm that has helped millions of taxpayers resolve penalties, remove liens, and stop wage garnishments. If you're dealing with IRS or state tax issues, don't wait. Call now.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store. It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked, and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
3, 2, 1. I found Tunnel to the Towers just through a TV commercial. I was like, oh, I wonder if they help out injured first responders. So when the Towers did reach out, it was awesome.
Men and women like Jay Youngblood, who served their country, are so deserving of their independence and the ability to take care of their children and provide for them. And that's what the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is doing when we give them a house.
Tunnel to Towers shows there's still humanity out there. Please donate $11 a month to t2t.org.
It's me, Ricky. You grew up with me. I am using Fatty 15 to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. I urge you to try Fatty 15.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Another lost spring break? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools are ultra durable for any climate. Can be installed in weeks, not months. And have hundreds of designs, sizes, and colors to choose from. For 70 years, Latham Pool has remained the gold standard in bringing backyard dreams to life. Our pools are easy to care for, won't stain or crack, and never require costly resurfacing. And with flexible financing options, your dream is within reach. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. It's never too early to start planning for a lifetime of memories. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
The road to greatness is long. But greatness isn't just forged from within. It has to be proven on the greatest stage of all.
The hype is real! This is the moment we have all been waiting for.
Comments for Carl. Let's do this, guys. All right. This is so funny. All these libs want to put trans and pride and everything in front of defending this nation. So I asked a simple question. Who do you want coming to save you in a hostage situation? Me or Dylan Mulvaney? And this guy had actually a really good point, okay? John Smith, which is probably a fake name because he doesn't have a profile picture, but a really good point says, think of it as a press conference. They want you, the real warrior, to take all the risk and do all the work while the trans get the photo op and credit and the promotions. It's actually facts, John Smith. All right, I tweeted out a response that we won't show, but you can go to my Twitter and check it out. It included a picture of the White House construction, and this person said, hey, Carl, F off. This is now, idiot Trump has D.C. looking like a landfill. Well, he did fix a bunch of other stuff, by the way, but spoken like somebody who's actually never built anything in their entire life, which checks out because you have a cat as a profile picture. See, before you build something, you have to dig a hole for a foundation, much like a landfill. Ironically, it's your liberal judges that want to keep it looking like a landfill because they keep stopping construction. If you get out of Trump's way, you'll get a foundation, then a beautiful ballroom, and it'll look great, just like many of his other award-winning properties all over the world. All right, I said the other night that I'm not allowed to do a show from the New Jersey protest site because they were worried I was going to knock someone out, which is probably true. But this guy said, great show, Carl. I agree with you. You should not do a show up there. I don't want to see you in jail. I mean, good looking out, brother. We appreciate it.
You would have had a good time, though.
I went to Minnesota, and none of them bothered. Like, we walked into the crowd, and they just parted. I'm like, you guys talk so tough all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They got big mouths, don't they?
Yep.
Carl, good to see you, as
America.
always.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.